The rainforest was drowning. For weeks, the sky had been a never-ending grey curtain, pouring down relentless rain. Rivers, once gentle streams that snaked through the lush green, had transformed into raging, angry torrents. They burst their banks, swallowing everything in their path. Ancient trees, which had stood for centuries as silent guardians of this vibrant world, were now helpless against the rising water. The ground, a rich tapestry of soil and life, became a soupy, treacherous mud. The air, usually filled with the symphony of chirping birds and chattering monkeys, was now dominated by the roar of the flood and the rumble of distant thunder. It was a natural disaster of epic proportions, a crisis that threatened to wipe out an entire ecosystem. This wasn't just a place of trees and water, it was a home. Millions of incredible animals lived here, each playing a vital role in the delicate balance of the jungle. Now their home was a terrifying trap. The monkeys, who once swung freely through the high canopy, found their leafy highways disappearing beneath the murky brown water. The sloths, slow and methodical, were stranded on shrinking islands of foliage, their movements no match for the rapid flood. Even the mighty jaguars, apex predators of this domain, were pushed from their territories, forced to seek higher ground in a desperate bid for survival. Every creature, from the smallest insect to the largest mammal, was in grave danger. The symphony of the jungle had become a desperate cry for help. Word of the catastrophe spread quickly across the globe. For wildlife conservationists and animal rescue experts, it was a call to action that could not be ignored. This was an emergency of the highest order, a race against time where every passing hour meant more lives lost. Teams began to assemble, packing specialized gear and preparing for the immense challenges ahead. They knew the conditions would be brutal and the risks extreme. The mission was clear but daunting: to venture into the heart of this flooded chaos and save as many animals as possible. It was a mission born from a deep love for wildlife and a commitment to protect the planet's most vulnerable inhabitants. The sense of urgency was palpable. Reports came in of entire sections of the forest being submerged, of animals clinging to floating debris, their eyes wide with fear. The scale of the disaster was almost unimaginable, but the resolve of the rescuers was even greater. They were a diverse group of veterinarians, wildlife biologists, and volunteers, all united by a single purpose. They understood that this wasn't just about saving individual animals, it was about preserving the very essence of the rainforest. The world was watching, hoping and praying for the creatures caught in the flood, and for the brave humans who were about to risk everything to save them. The rescue team arrived at the edge of the flood zone, and the scene was staggering. A heavy, relentless rain continued to fall, making everything slick and difficult. The air was thick with the smell of wet earth and decaying vegetation. Before them lay a vast, churning sea of brown water, littered with fallen trees and debris. The jungle they knew, a place of vibrant life, had been replaced by a landscape of destruction. Getting into this dangerous area required careful planning and a lot of courage. The team leader, a seasoned rescuer named Dr. Anya Sharma, gathered her crew for a final briefing. She pointed at a map, outlining the most critical areas where animals were likely to be trapped. Everyone knew the risks, but their determination was unwavering. Their journey began in specialized flat-bottomed boats, their engines growling as they pushed through the powerful currents. Navigating was a nightmare. Submerged logs and hidden branches acted like traps, threatening to damage the boats or throw the crew into the dangerous water. The team had to be constantly alert, their eyes scanning the water for hazards. At the same time, helicopters buzzed overhead, their pilots acting as aerial spotters. They relayed information to the boats below, guiding them toward isolated pockets of land where animals had gathered. The coordination between the air and water teams was essential. It was their lifeline in this chaotic and unpredictable environment. The challenges were more than just the water. The constant downpour made visibility poor and soaked everyone to the bone, making them cold and tired. The very ground they sought was unstable. Massive mudslides would suddenly cascade down the hillsides, sending tons of mud, rocks and trees crashing into the water below. The sound was like thunder, a terrifying reminder of the power of nature. The team had to be extremely careful where they anchored their boats or attempted to go ashore. One wrong move, one moment of carelessness could lead to disaster for both the rescuers and the animals they were trying to save. Despite the dangers, the team pushed forward, driven by their mission. Each member had a specific role. Veterinarians prepared tranquilizer darts and medical kits, ready to treat injured animals on the spot. Wildlife handlers managed nets, ropes, and transport cages, their movements practiced and efficient. Every person relied on the others completely. Communication was constant, with shouts and hand signals cutting through the noise of the rain and engines. It was a perfect example of teamwork under extreme pressure. They were a small force against a massive disaster, but their combined skill and bravery gave the trapped wildlife a fighting chance. The first major rescue was a family of elephants. The helicopters had spotted them huddled together on a small, rapidly shrinking patch of high ground. The giant animals were visibly distressed, the matriarch trumpeting nervously as the water crept closer. Getting to them was a huge challenge. The team had to use several boats to create a floating barrier, gently guiding the elephants toward a safer, more stable landmass a few hundred meters away. The lead veterinarian, Dr. Ben Carter, used a low-dose sedative on the agitated bull elephant to keep him calm. The team worked with incredible patience, their quiet movements and calm voices helping to soothe the terrified giants. It took hours, but finally the entire family was guided across the channel to safety. Not long after, the team received a call from a boat navigating a particularly dense, submerged section of the forest. They had found a troop of howler monkeys stranded in the upper branches of a single isolated tree. The lower branches were already underwater and the monkeys were trapped, their iconic howls now sounding like desperate pleas for help. Rescuing them was a delicate operation. The rescuers couldn't simply climb the tree as it was unstable. Instead, they extended long poles with attached platforms, creating a bridge for the monkeys. They used fruit to entice the scared animals, coaxing them one by one onto the platforms and into secure carriers, a slow and careful process that required a steady hand and a lot of patience. Perhaps the most heart-stopping rescue involved a lone jaguar cub. A spotter in a helicopter saw a tiny spotted figure clinging desperately to a branch overhanging the rushing water. The cub was young, no more than a few months old, and its mother was nowhere in sight. Dr. Sharma knew they had to act fast. She maneuvered her boat directly beneath the branch. The cub was terrified, hissing and showing its tiny teeth. Another rescuer used a long, padded pole to gently nudge the cub, trying to get it to fall into the large, soft net they held open below. After several tense minutes, the exhausted cub lost its grip and fell safely into the net, a small, shivering bundle of wildness saved from the flood. Each rescue presented its own unique set of problems, demanding quick thinking and creative solutions from the team. They used every tool at their disposal, from the brute force of the boats to the precision of the helicopters. Tranquilizer guns were used when necessary, but often it was simple ingenuity that saved the day. They created rope bridges for smaller mammals and used large nets to scoop up reptiles from the water. The collaboration was seamless. A call would come from the air, a boat team would respond, and the veterinary staff would be ready. It was a non-stop, high-stakes operation where every decision could be the difference between life and death for these incredible creatures. As days turned into a week, the relentless rain finally began to ease. The sky, once a solid sheet of grey, started to show patches of blue. The floodwaters, though still high, slowly began to recede, revealing a landscape scarred but not broken. For the rescue team, this was a moment of profound relief. They had worked tirelessly, pushing their minds and bodies to the limit. Now they could see the results of their incredible efforts. The temporary sanctuary they had set up on higher ground was filled with the sounds of life. The rescued elephants calmly stripped leaves from branches, the monkeys chattered in their enclosures, and the tiny jaguar cub was safely curled up, sleeping soundly under the watchful eye of the veterinary team. The sense of accomplishment among the team members was immense. They were covered in mud, exhausted from lack of sleep, and nursing minor cuts and bruises, but their spirits were high. They gathered together, looking out over the temporary home they had created for the displaced animals. They shared stories of the rescues, of the close calls, and the moments of triumph. There was a quiet pride in their eyes, the pride of knowing they had ventured into the face of a natural disaster and made a real difference. They hadn't just saved animals, they had saved a piece of the world's natural heritage. Their teamwork and bravery had turned a story of tragedy into one of hope. The work was not over. The rescued animals would need care and rehabilitation before they could be returned to the wild. The team would monitor their health, ensuring they were strong enough to survive when the forest had healed. The jaguar cub, having lost its mother, would require special long-term care at a conservation center. But for now, they were all safe. The immediate danger had passed, thanks to the quick thinking and unwavering dedication of the rescuers. The helicopters, which had once been symbols of the emergency, now flew missions to survey the healing landscape, planning for the eventual re-release of the animals. Looking back, the mission was a powerful testament to human compassion. In a world often filled with bad news, this was a story of courage and hope. The team had faced down raging currents, mudslides, and exhaustion, all for the sake of the voiceless creatures of the rainforest. As the sun finally broke through the clouds, casting a warm glow over the waterlogged jungle, it felt like a new dawn. The animals were safe, the ecosystem had a chance to recover, and the tired but proud rescue team knew they had answered nature's desperate call for help. They had stood together and become guardians of the wild when it needed them most.